biometric challenge, and some way to basically sign these transactions with a single touch. But it's a lot easier than having to generate a code like you used to do, or just about anything else. We're also leveraging a lot of our background in security to kind of go and do some other things that a bunch of our computers aren't around protecting the mobile platform itself. And so, anyway, this is all boring. So I'll skip all the rest of this stuff. We do have a bunch of customers. Customers do include a lot of really interesting folks, from big Web 2.0 companies all the way down to individuals. These are all paying customers. We've got 500 customers in total, with users in about 80 countries, and growing. And so that's basically the company pitch. And when we were we were kind of weighing our options last year about the growth of the company, what we sort of came to was that things were moving in a bunch of different directions at once, right? Where much of this was really inbound. We have today we've really, except for now hiring Brian, we've had no sales or marketing per se. We really don't have we've had no marketing budget. We haven't had no outbound sort of salespeople. It's all been inbound. Helps a lot that guys like Jono end up on stuff like this, Jono was in what is this? Snoopy. Alright. Oh, look, he's.
Hey, we need a source for that.
Right. But John, this is in Forbes last month. He is one of the 30 top tech entrepreneurs in the world. And next month he's going to be partying literally with Lady Gaga and Justin Bieber in New York. But literally, he's going to get pictures. We'll see. But a lot of inbound marketing. Through a lot of inbound marketing, a lot of earned media, right? Is really, I guess, the social term to use. We've been able to drive a lot of inbound interest and traffic toward the solution, and through basically building a product that's highly optimized toward very fast, like a really surprisingly cool and awesome sort of out-of-the-box experience, where the typical kind of deployment for products in this space take months, literally, to get up and running and deployed and set up. Our stuff takes like 15 minutes, typically with no hardware software. So if you have if you're a big company with a Cisco or Juniper or whatever, remote access VPN and thousands of users, literally. That sort of tipping point between sales and between marketing and sales, where by the time that they're ready to buy it, they're already using the product. It's already in place, already using it. They just need to put in their damn credit card and start paying us. And that's a large part, I think, of where we see the future really of solutions in the enterprise, whether it's ours or any others. Companies they're tired of sort of dealing with the guy holding the bag, traveling place to place, and all that, and having to negotiate this stuff. There's always going to be some amount of that because organizations being organizations and sort of cultural institutions, there's always sort of these rituals you have to kind of go through in an enterprise sales process between the takeover champion and the manager, or, you know, the whoever has final budget authority and sign off, to the procurement folks who are the worst. You know, to the extent that you can actually optimize this stuff for the kind of customers who can buy on their own, that's a lot of what we do. And probably, I guess, I would say maybe half of our customers at this point we've never talked to, right? Like they just signed up and kind of bought from us. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is about Duo. I don't know, any questions or anything?
Does anyone have a question? Because I got a couple of questions that I think it's going to be up to you. I mean, John, do you have anything to add, by the way?
I have some questions. How did you go about the fundraising process, and what was your experience?
Oh, right. You're going to talk about that. Thank you. Yeah. My better half. I need a co-founder. No, so you know, when we were looking at, we had some options because things did grow very quickly for us, and well, they are still growing very quickly for us. We have lots of inbound interest from folks that are not just our traditional B2B customers, but increasingly are like B2B2C, right? Customers that have lots of users that they want to protect those users on their own system, not necessarily internal employees. Or we have other customers that are large service providers like big telecoms, some of our customers at Arbor that want to sort of resell our stuff, right, to their customers. And as we sort of look at that mix of different sort of channel opportunities and sort of product opportunities, we're sort of scratching our heads trying to figure out, you know, where to double down, because as a startup, it's really hard to kind of, we're spread really thin. I feel like on the board there, probably shouldn't have on the board there, but anyway. We've got, like, we basically have like more projects than people at this point in the company, and it's a little bit of an issue. Well, it's a big issue, more than a little bit. And so, you know, when we sort of looked at the next stage of the company's growth, you know, that's exactly the kind of point at which, you know, you sort of have to take a sort of hard swallow and figure out, do you take capital, right, to kind of build a business, or do you just keep going and sort of slow things down and sort of, you know, eat what you can kill and all this kind of thing? I've done both, right? I mean, like during consulting days, we were literally hand to mouth, kind of like, well, not really hand to mouth, like feast or famine, right? You go and kill a big elf, and you're like, oh, everything's great. You're holding big parties, and you're having a great time, and then next like 6 months, you're like, oh crap, like, you know, everything's gone, like, you know, like, yeah, it's tough. And capital is a tool, right? I mean, money's a tool. You know, you can use it to kind of fuel growth. You can light a fire. But for us, you know, we had a few options. We ended up going for some government funding. So we have some DoD funding for some of the security research that John was done. And on the basis of that funding, almost alone, we would have been good on cash flow through 2013 had we stayed at the small team that we started with, 5 people. What we came to was that really wasn't an option, right? That when things are working, you have to kind of follow through with that, right? You can't really just like stop. No, we're going to just bootstrap and, you know, screw this, because we would have been profitable probably in another month at that rate. But it's not. That shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be to kind of build the biggest possible business we can, given the mission that we have, right, which is really to save the damn internet. It's true. And so ultimately we decided that we might look for funding, but the Google guys approached us first, and so we had a plan that, you know, sometime this year, starting about now, we would have started to look, but you know, the Google guys came to us basically the week of Christmas, although they had been talking to us a little bit before that, and they dropped us a term sheet, and then, you know, sort of had to figure out whether that was something we wanted to do or not. But as a preemptive offer, it was good, and we sort of were able to negotiate it pretty well, and it was ended up being an offer we couldn't really refuse. So we then taken the money, and it was, you know, that's good. I think the lessons learned from that were that, you know, having you know, I guess it's not hard, right? When investors see a successful business, it's not hard to sort of double down. So I'll get some of that. I'll have what that guy's having, right? When you're early, you know, no one, you know, it's like 2 guys on talking duck. You know, no one knows if this thing's real or not. And we had raised $1 million as a seed round from True Ventures over in Palo Alto and San Francisco and Northern Virginia, as well as Resident Ventures, two buddies of ours that had just graduated B school, were trying to start a fund, but at the time at which they invested, they were still under the $5 million as an institutional investor that would have made them accredited, so we had to pull some funny tricks to actually take their money. You know, that was after we actually sold our first customer. Because when we launched the company in January of 2010, you know, the first meeting I dragged John out to, I remember, is we drove a car. We drove to New York and slept literally. Well, he got the couch. I slept on the freaking floor, and my friend Jenny's apartment in Brooklyn. And you know, we were going to meet some of my old customers who were, you know, Citibank and Goldman, right, from Arbor days, and mostly kind of get some feedback about what we're doing and see whether you know, when they'd be interested. Although we were pretty sure, you know, I mean, we had nothing. We had no product really. And it was just like, you know, it was all smoke and mirrors, right? But we were very interested in actually getting feedback, and actually it was good. They gave us a lot of good feedback. And what we realized quickly was that we really didn't want those kind of customers those kind of people as customers at this point. That, you know, that we would have been beholden to them for the rest of the year, right? For every other product feature we developed, and you know, a lot of it probably couldn't have been turned around repeatedly into multiple sales, right?
It's definitely negative feedback, but at the same time, it was very valuable for us to, you know, focus on, I think, the markets that we have success in, rather than going after those big type of customers.
Right. And so, you know, right after that, we made a decision that we figure out how to kind of go after, you know, the down market, right? Take an opportunity down market, trying to apply the best practices and techniques that a lot of those big guys were using, right, to protect themselves, which is a really key factor. And anyway, in hindsight, right, we can always make these stories about what we knew we were going to do and what we realized. This is all crap. But ultimately, what happened was, you know, we hooked up with a reseller who we didn't know previously, and we ended up selling to another customer who we didn't know, because, you know, between John and I, we know lots of people and we have lots of history sort of in the security community and commercially. And it's not that hard to go and sell to someone else you've sold to before. But to actually build a business and to sort of validate the model that we had around what we were doing, we tried to make sure that we could, you know, basically transact like an arm's length sale, right, to a customer that we didn't know, and try to see if that worked, and try to see the value we carry through, working even through a channel that, you know, wasn't trained up on our product, you know, had no idea necessarily how to sell this thing, and it worked. We ended up selling to the nation's second largest physician health group in America, about 300 doctors in about 30 locations in America, and also some folks internationally. And it was great. I mean, it was a good deal. Check is on the wall, you know, the very first check. You know, we learned a lot of stuff very quickly, right? Like when you sell to healthcare, you know, you can't really screw things up, and because you know, lives are at stake, right? Oh, you know, life or death, you know, it's real. It's really, you can't really screw stuff up. And we did, you know, like, I mean, the product, we had to build the product, right? So we built the product right as we were selling the damn thing. And, you know, their first deployment was okay for like a few months, and then we had an outage, like, I don't know how many hours, and it was, my doctor is not able to log into the freaking, not good. And so we kind of pulled back and said, whoa, we're going to stop, you know, stop the line, let's figure this out, make this work, and we invested a lot of time in trying to make sure that the thing really was sort of bulletproof and ready, carrier grade sort of solution, right, for much larger customers. So that's sort of how our first customer deal went, and on the basis of all the learnings sort of that went through that first 8 months, we then were able to raise the $1 million from True, because they'd seen that we had sort of core of a repeatable sales model that we sort of understood. We sort of understood the unit economics of what each of these deals would look like for us. We understood sort of where the gaps were for us functioning in terms of trying to sell, right, to customers like healthcare, which are probably still the most demanding kind of customers that we have, and that you know, that we had the team to go and figure it out. And so at any rate, you know, the first $1 million was the hardest. The second one was easier. We actually did go out for the first round. We ended up going and doing the whole Central Roadshow, you know, Palo Alto, and curious enough, it was none of those guys that we ended up doing the deal with. It was True Ventures who got wind of us raising through a buddy, And his buddy tried to introduce us, like, oh, you gotta meet these guys. He's great. They funded me, blah blah. And we're like, oh, okay, now we're already done. We're close to deal with these other guys. Like, I mean, we were in final partner meetings with literally the hottest VC in the valley. But we weren't sure about them because, like many VCs out there, they're sort of circumspect about us being here versus building the company there, where they can actually help, right? It's not something necessarily selfish, although the VCs can be sort of lazy about going to board meetings elsewhere. But it's true that they have a circle of influence and talent and so forth that they can actually leverage in the valley versus here. But True said, no, hold up, let's just talk, please, let's just get a word in edgewise. And they flew out here on a Friday, took a bunch of time with us. All up until then, they've been doing a bunch of calls with us and following up a bunch of references. And by the time they showed up here, I mean, they basically had a term sheet for us the next day, on the Saturday, and the week after we were closing with these guys. And so that was sort of a really great experience for us. And the experience with Google is now even better, right? They showed up. We didn't go out, right, to California at that time. They came here. Although I had a pretty rough Christmas, I was negotiating term sheets over the holiday break, so not taking a day off since Thanksgiving, but my wife would forgive me. Any questions about any stuff, or?
Excuse me. And let's just take a break because I actually forgot to mention something very important before we all started this. Actually, our sponsors. I mean, these are the people who actually help us out and really do believe that this is all worth it. So a couple of them is Core Merchant. It's their payment solution that makes sense. They're basically a payment company, merchant company, Business You. We have TextRipple. Basically, it's a texting company. They're out of Tech Town. Blue Water Angels. They're out of Midland. Big, starting out capital with connections, what they consider themselves out of Midland. Then we got Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, always trying to help the smaller companies. And then we got Wisdom U, thanks to Maria. I mean, it's a huge part of us existing. Tech Town, thanks to them for the food, the drinks. They're the ones who supported all this. They continue to support us. Mentanote, my company, and then Quicken Loans. And then basically Quicken Loans for giving us an opportunity to use their facilities off-9. So I want to say thanks to them, and again, we couldn't do it without them. But I do have a quick question for you, because I know you mentioned about Google coming out. I also heard that you guys could have been acquired during the holiday. And what made you decide not to go that route?
Well, we're early. We're just very early as a company. So, while it happens to companies all the time, right? That as people see value in sort of what people are doing, there's acquisition interest, but we're just too early to sell.
That was your main, I guess, differentiator. What, you could have gone that route versus this route.
Yeah, because the reality is, you sell a company, right? I mean, particularly having been through with Arbor, right? I mean, you still got to do something, And so, what are you going to do? Right? I mean, and the thing that's really people forget is that how hard it is to grow a company to this point, right? It takes a long time, and it's hard work, and now like the fun is just beginning. Like we're buying new furniture, like the first time ever in the company's history, right? So IKEA furniture, but
we all do.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a person who's looking for also acquisition, what did you mean by you said that there's a lot of work after that being acquired? I mean, knowing that you've already had that experience, share with us what is it that you had to do, even when you were acquired?
Having been doing both sides, like sell side and buy side, in terms of M&A. I mean, particularly for small deals, you structure them in ways that make sense for the acquirer. Things like earnouts and all sorts of sometimes difficult terms for entrepreneurs to deal with. And the challenge is that there are a bunch of different sort of schools of thoughts about this, right? What I'd say though is if you have a company, if you have an idea, or you have a working business that could go big, right? That actually has the potential to be something much larger than yourselves, then it's almost your duty, right? It's kind of like raising a kid, I keep telling people, like startups are like a startup career is one of planned obsolescence. You kind of get things to the point where you're not needed anymore, and that's like the goal, right? You want to be able to walk away from something, and but sometimes that's not possible, right? And when it's not possible, It just depends. There's a fellow out of Vancouver, this guy Basil Peters. He's the head of the Vancouver Angels. He writes angelblog.net. It's a really good website. It's the only book I've ever seen on the subject of early exits for founders and investors from the point of view of angel investors, not VCs, right? And I mean, it's a really smart book, right? The idea is that, you know, particularly early in a company's life cycle, there's this, I mean, it's like a Gartner sort of hype cycle, right? But there's a sort of peak of hope, right, for a company where, you know, where you think things could be are very far from where they actually are. But that delta, that difference, right, is strategic. It's like a strategic valuation that you may never see again, right? That sort of gap and difference in, and that if you're not the company, the team to go and actually realize that, like, you know, extrapolate that out and make it real and grow into that opportunity, then it makes sense to sell. But you know, you see companies happen all the time. They're right over the top, right? They sort of, you know, no, keep going, and then so you keep going, and then they build enough revenue, but it's a little bit of revenue, not enough, and they get value on the revenue, right? You know, multiple trailing revenue instead of a strategic valuation, and then it all gets screwed up, right? But it just depends, right? You know, I think it's a lot more fun to kind of go and do something really hard and really impactful and really meaningful. I mean, and again, not to denigrate anybody, right? But, you know, it's the same amount of work to build like a tech company, a successful, big, giant, global kind of franchise, as it is to go and open a coffee shop. Like, literally, it's about, you know, you're going to put in the same amount of effort. Why not try something really big? You know, if you can do it. Yeah, there's a question over here.
Can you speak a bit about term sheets and lawyers' fees?
Yeah,
with
sure.
regard to
Sure.
being approached?
Yeah, so, you know, in my point of view, I think there's only like, I mean, I've only really met like 4 venture lawyers in Michigan, and all of them have had less experience than your sort of junior associate at like WSGR or wherever else in the valley. But, you know, I think we're getting to the point now here where folks have had enough experience with venture deals that they're getting more acculturated to the sort of standard terms, market terms, right, and the kind of pricing, right, that you'd find from you know, firms out on the coast. When we did our deal, it was more or less sort of a standard deal. I mean, literally, it was like one of these open source stocks. If you haven't seen this stuff, I mean, some of this stuff is up on the 18 Geeks website. So one of the things we do here in Ann Arbor is we have a nonprofit called 82 Geeks, where we catalog about 60 different tech groups in town that hold average 2 to 3 tech events every night. So it's pretty, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here. But under this entrepreneurship, you know, like there's a bunch of crap. There's a bunch of, you know, different things here. But what we find is also somewhere, a bunch of the open source early stage term sheets, right, for you know, seed rounds, Series seed, or, you know, equity or convertible debt, which primarily most of the deals in the valley that are at that stage are using now, right? And with that, you know, your fees are very cheap. You know, there's just very little to haggle about other than, you know, valuation, maybe discount to the follow-on round. So, can I recommend a lawyer?
No. Do you recommend having a lawyer going through your shit?
Yeah. Don't screw around. Right. You definitely need a lawyer. There's no doubt because I mean, investors are lawyered up, and investors do this all day long. They do way more. That's their business. They do deals. They see more deals than you'll ever dream of. So if you're an entrepreneur, you need to find counsel who actually knows what they're talking about. We have one that's here that actually represents probably half the companies in the brewery that have raised money. This stuff is out on the back table there, but he's actually out of Bloomfield Hills, a firm called Saffron Baker, but Matt Bauer. He's great. Yeah, Matt's great. He's done a lot of good deals.
Ballpark costs?
What's that?
What are those ballpark costs for?
Ballpark costs. Actually, he has this little seed package. I don't remember what it is, but the brochure on the back actually has all that listed. And they're also like, I don't mean to make this a commercial for Matt, but I mean, what you find in the valley is that, you know, firms like WSGR, Wilson Sonsini, like the kind of the big boys out there, they have a sort of standard formula for either fee deferral or fee for equities or compensation, where those guys will do traditionally like a half a point, right, for half a point for like 25K worth. Is that right, John? Something like this.
Huh?
Huh?
I thought it might have been
15, yeah. 50K? No way. They don't do that, really. That's 150? You maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But at any rate, but Arbor is also one of the few firms that is also willing to defer fees, right? Like they don't pay us anything. Like we'll do all your corporation pay, but don't pay us anything until we're ready to actually do a deal. But that may be a special kind of thing that they did for us. But I know they've done it for other companies. Helps a lot to have a little bit of track record, right? Kind of doing this stuff, but.
So the pair perspective. So
yeah.
anybody wants more information on that?
And for what it's worth, I mean, Matt also does these open office hours that, if you ever want to come, if you ever stop by the brewery on a Friday, you can sign up for a free legal consultation. It's on the right side of the website, but you can sign up and you probably do it, because he's based in Bloomfield Hills, so probably most of the time, he's going to be easier to catch away on the east side.
Were there terms on the sheet that you had to negotiate out that were like sticky ones?
Yeah.
So you did have to go through a couple lines?
Oh yeah. I mean good term sheet is a good term sheet,
Yeah.
but you'll never get everything you want out of the. Nothing life's like that, right? You always got to negotiate something, right? Yeah.
You touched on it slightly. When you went out to Silicon Valley, you were looking for money.
Yeah.
Were there any deals that you lost? Was there any pressure to move your company out there? We kind of talked about how you decided to stay here as opposed to going out there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we got close to a bunch of folks that we really liked. In particular, one that we sort of felt bad about was, I mean, these guys are like the hottest venture firm out there, and they're great. They're amazing guys, but most of their network is out there, right? But so is mine. Like, most of my network's out there. So we didn't really need that. Hard to say, I don't really need it. I mean, of course, you're never going to turn down, some connections from a firm like that. But we weren't willing to make the switch. We weren't willing to do it. And particularly, we're at a stage now with this company. Every other company I've done, whether it's Zatu, Barracuda, Arbor, has been split. It's been Ann Arbor and Boston, Ann Arbor and Campbell, California, Ann Arbor and Zurich, Switzerland, right? Tired of it, I got a 6-year-old son, I got a nearly 2-year-old daughter. I'm not going anywhere, and that's what informed a lot of the design of the company, even that well, one, it's a lot more efficient not to have a bunch of very highly paid outside sales folks, but two, not having to do that kind of travel is nice, right? Maybe Jono, one of the 30 under 30, is young enough to kind of appreciate still kind of going. He's going to be in Singapore and all that other stuff coming up.
I like Michigan though.
Yeah. I'm more interested to figure out how we build it here, because I know it's possible, right? And I've seen my friends elsewhere in Boulder and do it successfully. So, and the reality is, you look around, right? Like, there are a lot of companies in Michigan, like, they were just fine, right? They were all, lots of history of huge, tremendous, awesome, successful companies right here in Michigan. In fact, we were the Silicon Valley, right, of the last century for many, many years. A lot of that money's still here. A lot of the people are still here. A lot of people that stayed are the people who should be here. So I don't see any reason to go out there particularly.
Any questions?
Yeah.
What would you say are the main advantages of growing your business as part of a hub or a business incubator?
Yeah. So, the brewery, we don't really call it an incubator per se, because we don't offer services, right? I mean, they're folks that, we have service providers that come and hang out and all this kind of stuff and are part of the community, but we really do think of ourselves as more of a community of startups. I think it's what it says. The difference really is that, we focus a lot more on the grassroots kind of stuff, right? Where I think, Michigan is already very top-down and institutional, just because I think of the history of the autos, right, and the fact that we're sort of almost attuned or acculturated toward large institutions, large companies, and your dad works at Ford or GM or whatever, right? But if he didn't have any tie to the industry, you're like, well, what does he do, right? Does he have a job, right? But the reality is that, particularly for this kind of early stage innovation, it looks like this. It's messy. It's ugly, right? It's like it's like beer bottles all over the place. But that's how it works. And the sort of peer mentorship and the moral support, I guess you get, right, from kind of just slogging it out. Because as fun as all this stuff is, building a business is really freaking hard, right? It's not as a walk in the park. It's a lot of long hours. It's anyone who's ever found a company knows just every day is either the best of your life or the worst of your life. Pretty much so.
You talked about building your, building this. How did you build your team? I know that you talked about long-term relationship with most of these guys. So.
Yeah. So I think that's something that's highly undervalued, particularly here, right? Like I see a lot in Michigan folks who have worked for a long time and know a lot of folks in their immediate work group, but not much else, right? So by the time that they leave a company and they want to start a company, they don't have the connections or the people to draw upon, the relationships, and that's really tough, because without that, the challenge is you can't build a company with people that are exactly like yourself. Of course, I say that, and like John was a lot like me. Adam is a lot like me. Like we're very similar kind of. We're all technologists or whatever, security guys. But Brian is he's more of a marketing guy, and Tom is he plays frisbee. I don't play frisbee, but he's a UX guy. He's like a designer. But without the right composition, it's hard to build a company, which means that you have to actually go about it consciously. You have to go out of your way actually to meet people. Like I said, like I say, always be selling, whatever. Always be recruiting. Even if I don't have jobs available, I'm always keeping tabs on people that I think are interesting. And the honest truth is, some part of it also is just being helpful, right? That if you are, and this is something that happens, like everyone in the Valley does this, right? You get off the plane in San Jose or San Francisco, and the first thing I want to ask you, hey, what do you do? Is the next thing out of their mouth is, oh, I know someone you should meet. And that kind of attitude of sort of pay it forward, and the idea that everyone is somebody, right? You don't have any, because like literally you don't know. Like the guy down the street with like the flip flops and the hoodie, that dude probably is like CEO of like $1 billion company, right? And this other dude is wearing the Rolex and whatever. He's probably like working for him, right? Like it's you never know this stuff, right? Out in the Valley, and here. It's just a little bit tougher because we seem a little bit more siloed, right, in terms of the culture, and so you have to kind of go to this kind of stuff, and you kind of have to work your way toward making sure you build up a community of people that's diverse that you can draw upon later. And again, a large part I think that helps is if you can actually go and be helpful, connect people, right, that you haven't met before, that they need to meet, and sort of stay in the loop, right, of the orbit of a talent pool that you can draw from later.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah. You mentioned getting funding from like True Ventures and Google.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about kind of the creative control and involvement that they have in the company in return for that funding?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So part of the reason we chose the investors we have is because they are hands off a little bit, but they're very helpful. One of the weird things you find often when it comes to VC funding is that the folks who have the least experience actually running a company are the ones that are most interested to help you, right? I don't know. It's like you're like a shiny new plaything for them, and they want to play being kind of being a founder. I'm being a little harsh, but it's the case that typically a lot of the venture partners that actually have had operational experience, they've actually been part of companies or they started companies before, are a lot less inclined to get up in your business, right, when they see that you know what you're doing, right? Like if you invest in somebody, typically it's because you trust them to go and build a business, and it's really maybe the lesser or the less interesting sort of investors that don't do that. The other point I make though about sort of investment and so forth though is that there are very few companies that are actually appropriate for venture investing, and that's not necessarily a reflection of the promise or the potential or or the worth really of what those companies are or could be. Because there are lots and lots of great companies. For instance, here in Arbor, Zingerman's, right? I'm sure you guys all know Zingerman's. I hope you do, or if you're not, you should go there after this and get some food. Like a $70 million operation, right? Their deli, like a deli has like a $7 million operation doing everything from corporate training to making their own like cheese and like everything between, right? But they've been part of this kind of movement of companies that so-called choose to be, great, not huge or whatever. I don't know. And they call small giants, right? And Bo Burlingame wrote a book about this called Small Giants that kind of focus on this. And we have a lot of those kind of companies here in Arbor, and they're all doing great. They're doing very well. People are very happy, and they've been able to build those businesses without the big shot of cash, right? That VC represents. Because when you take an outside investment, it's a commitment, right? It's like it's a pact. Like we're gonna go kill it. We're gonna go shoot for the moon or die trying, and that's it. Like there's no turn back. And so you have to take that stuff really seriously. Like I say, like it's the lesser investors that get you really nervous about it and get up in your business, right? Sort of from the start of all that. Every investor will do that when things are going poorly. They feel like they have to help and figure out how to do things. But if you can, build a company without funding. If it makes sense. Not every opportunity though is like that, and not every. It just depends.
Do you find that you've benefited from the resources that these companies have provided to you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The investors we have today are extremely strategic. They're very helpful in many ways, and they were so before they were even investors, and that was part of what convinced us actually to go with them. That before we ever got a term sheet from them, they were making introductions for us to the CEOs of some tremendous companies that we have a lot in common with, or a lot of affinity, or we'd like to do business with. And again, I feel like a lot of that is sort of the culture of the Valley generally, though, that you'll find. You find a lot of people want to be helpful because there's opportunity everywhere. Everything's opportunity. Like some crazy idea someone had, when they woke up this morning. Oh, that's awesome! Let's go do that thing. We're a little bit more circumspect about it and everything. And maybe it's better on balance, but that kind of irrational exuberance out there in the Valley, the help, is what makes it so exciting and what keeps things interesting.
This is actually my personal question because I've always, through all my conversation with the last successful Josh Link, we're talking about Sam Ho, and I'm considering you guys as somewhat successful too, is that how much of it deals with luck?
Yeah, it's a lot of luck. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously luck. I mean, but luck is, I think, a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of luck. A lot of it's also just being in the right place at the right time, but doing the things that set yourself up for, for that, right, for the opportunity. In our case, I mean, we saw that this is a big problem brewing back before I think a lot of folks really did, and so I think this picture here, right. We sort of been tracking this stuff for a long time. Of course, because we're subject matter experts, right? We're just like security nerds, so we spend a lot of time looking at this stuff and figuring this stuff out. But we knew that this would be a good thing to kind of get into, and we did, and it helped a lot. Like we were effectively lucky, I guess, unless they took our ideas. But we talked to Google and Facebook about all this kind of stuff, right, way back when. And then they end up implementing, not our solution. I mean, they're one of those customers, but we ended up implementing something similar using a mobile device, just an SMS, right? And that kind of made the market for us in many ways, right? Where instead of having to explain, oh yeah, those RSA tokens, that's what the bankers use, and blah blah blah. So oh yeah, that thing that Google does or that Facebook's doing to protect your account. Yeah, we do that, right? So was that prescient of us? Were we lucky? I don't really know. but I'd say a lot of it is just in preparation, right? That you kind of working toward things early, right? Trying to because by the time that you sort of identify a big trend and everything, like it's just a big pile, like it's kind of a crazy thing. And
I think it wasn't, when we started off, it wasn't really, we had a crazy idea and we were going to pursue that to the fullest in hopes that it was the right thing to do. It was more a survey of the security space, what technologies we thought were emerging, and which problems we thought we could solve in the best way. So it was more of a, I don't want to say a scientific approach, but it was a much more thoughtful approach to what problem you're trying to solve, rather than we have a solution and we're going to go at it full steam.
Any questions? There's one that I know I hear you talk about this quite a bit too through DNewTech and also X-Economy. You talk about business plan versus business model. I mean, what's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, I've never really written a business plan. I think we tried, failed at it. I suck at school, right? And to me, a lot of the business planning stuff, it feels a lot like school.
Right.
And he's a PhD. He could probably write a business plan. I can't.
I go to school.
I can sell. You can't sell. You can sell too. You got to boyish good looks in there. Forbes article.
Yeah, tell us, but why?
Yeah.
Why do you think like that?
Why?
Because a lot of us are here startups and we all think that we need business plan. What's your thought?
Yeah, so I think, the business plan is actually, it's funny, I just got this book. Steve Blank was here, not too long ago. I got a buddy, Eric Rees, who I went on this trip with to Asia. He used to show this lead startup guy. Steve Blank wrote this book called 4 Steps Epiphany. Don't get this book. This is a crazy book. It's horrible. It's really, it's good, but it's like it's like school all over again, right? This book is better. He just came out with this book. He sent this to me. I haven't read it yet, but like big words, big print. It's like a lot easier to deal with. I think it's the Reader's Digest, really simple version of this, so it's thicker and more expensive. But the idea is, it's like a startup owner's manual, a step-by-step guide for building a great company. It's only so easy, but it does provide at least a good framework to sort of think about the problem, right? Like how do you create value, right? How do you create value, and how do you build an organization around it that can sell it? I think the challenge is, and sometimes I'm thinking that you can just kind of create the kind of plan out of whole cloth, right? Like without ever actually testing things in the market. Because I think Steve has a very famous quote, like business plan never survives its first contact with a real customer, and I think that's largely true, right? That no matter how smart you think you are or whatever, you're not omniscient, you're not God, right? There's lots of things that you don't know about how customers react or what they need. Even now we're still figuring out things like pricing, and that's a fun thing about it. That's what's sort of fun about. Startups in general is that they're very fluid. There's always a lot going on. There's a lot to figure out as you're building the car as you're driving it, right? And that's it's all part of the ride. I'm not so sure that plan to execute the plan, right? Sort of the traditional waterfall model of all this stuff. The big companies are able to execute that stuff on known sort of opportunities, but companies like ours, like we're still searching. We're still searching for the thing that's going to be the exact thing for us to do and the highest value opportunity for us to go after. So,
Well, I'm going to just end it right now because unless anyone has any questions, dying questions that you might have, this is a great opportunity just to pick a brain of someone who's actually been doing it for a while. So, anybody? Going once? Going twice?
Why do you stay in Tech Brewery as opposed to...
Because you wanted to.
You're on the spot then.
Yeah. No, so... man, the other place had a beer. It's got a beer garden next to it, man. It's got a YMCA. We can walk across the street. Anyway, we're here still, and we're gonna move upstairs. Even though it's probably only gonna hold us for maybe 12 months, maybe not. Because we like the community, right? It's got a pool table, and we got a foosball table. we have free parking, right? That's, I mean, that actually counts a hell of a lot in Ann Arbor. But the reality is we like the people, like, right? We like, you know, like being nice to Steve and Kyle and, you know, all these guys. Sam is new, and you know, without again that sort of community, you know, while your coworkers are great, you know, it's always nice to feel part of something that's a bit larger, right, than yourself. And so, so yeah, we're happy to continue to be here and happy to make room, right? This is our pod. For the next company, they'll come in and, you know, do whatever the next great thing. You know, that whole pod you guys are sitting at is my buddies Craig and Joe from Arbor. So after all this stuff we started to do or anything, helped Craig and Joe spin out from Arbor, and we got them funded for $1.5 million also. And so called Deep Field Networks. And now they're 4 people. They were 2 just like 2 months ago. And that's what we're going to see. We're trying to do a lot more of that here.
Actually, we just got a brand new tape, so we can go for another hour. Just kidding, man. Just kidding. Hey, you actually mentioned something about inbound. You didn't have a sales. You didn't have Brian back then, and you actually were able to do your sales. Tell us. I mean, for startups, I mean, what type of how did you do the inbound marketing? What is that? I mean, I kind of understand, but share with the group.
To be honest, a lot of it's almost accidental. I mean, you know, I wish I could say that. Oh yeah, we had this great technical marketing, inbound marketing plan. We're gonna. I mean, it's bullshit. I mean, I mean, John will tell you, like, I suck at blogging. I barely do it. John was like much better at writing that stuff than I am, or writing things that are actually valuable for people to read. Like if they're like, you know, forum posts on, you know, different internet forums about our product, I'll go and spam them with like very spammy like advertising. Right? That's like, I suck at this stuff. At any rate, you know. I think what really comes to is the fact that we built a reputation over many years of doing things like open source, right? Like, you know, like if you look on if you have any Mac or Linux or whatever box, not Windows, but look at the SSH man page, right? SSH is like the most popular network security tool for remote login, file transfer, everything else, and you look at my name's there, right? I was one of the authors of it. Half of us were here in Arbor when we built it. And you know, our experience kind of building that kind of stuff and getting out in the community and kind of building up the goodwill, right, across the internet of software we've written does a lot for us, right? It's kind of a calling card. Like, oh yeah, you remember me? I wrote that software that's on your computer. You know, it's actually a useful thing. And so, you know, on the internet, there really is such a thing as this gift culture, or at least among hackers, right? There's this kind of notion of a gift culture where, you know, you contribute things back to the internet community and et cetera, and it pays itself forward, right? Where, you know, people recognize us from the kind of work that we've done like that. And you know, John publishes a ton of stuff, right? He publishes freely. Like he turned down like a 10K. Well, he screwed it up. That's what he did.
I didn't turn it down, I made a mistake.
But like, for instance, like a contest every year, honed down, right, for like, you know, vulnerabilities, right, that you find in, you know, different products and stuff at one of these big security conferences, and you know, they offer up bounties, right, like awards for this thing. And John gave it up freely, like without receiving a reward, and turns out he just screwed up. I mean, he actually did want the money. But at any rate, you know, the notion of actually kind of giving things away for free, to the extent that, you know, you can on the internet, actually does make sense to at some level. And even for our company, right, where, you know, if you're a small company and you have, say, feedback, you only have like you know, like 10 users of our system, right? For instance, like your e-commerce retailer, you have a PCI environment where you've got cardholder data. If you're required by PCI DSS 8.3 that you have two-factor authentication for access to that data. But you only have 10 admins, you use our product entirely for free. And the reason we do that is because it's basically marketing with bits. You know, the more people that try our stuff, you know, because we're very confident in our product. We like our product ourselves. This is a product that we always wanted to have ourselves. And so, you know, when other customers try it out, they feel the same way. Like, hey, this is awesome. And they've tweeted this exactly. Like, you know, this is a product I always wanted, and blah, blah, blah. And it always feels good. But it also actually does a lot, right, to have our own customers sell the product for us in some respect. And so, you know, there's a notion of a net promoter score. I don't know if you've heard of that, but, you know, it's probably the most useful measure of customer satisfaction. It's like, you know, answer the question, would you recommend this to someone else, right? And for us, like we probably have like we haven't measured, we could do surveys and we could actually like get hard metrics on this, but we believe we have a really strong positive net promoter score because we see it. We see customers blogging about us. We see customers referring people. New customers come to us and we ask them, well, how'd you hear about us? Oh yeah, this guy already told me. You know, so we know we're doing something right in terms of the product. It's Brian's job to figure out how to get more of them.
I came from a very net promoter score. I came from a much larger company. It's partially due to the competitor deals right now. And part of my reason why I reached out to Doug and John a while back was because I saw what they were doing here. I saw this page, and I tried the product, and I knew what we were trying to. Well, I knew what another group in the company I was working with was trying to build for 6 to 12 months of call it a test drive. Go on and try it, try everything for free. They never did it. And they had huge sales teams that is probably part of the reason why I never invested in doing it, or they just didn't grok it. And so I saw this and I said, this is the way you do it. This is how enterprise software should be sold from now on. We actually got mentioned by the former platform lead at Twitter that has a blog that's written by tech community. And he pointed to Duo, and we saw like 1,000 incoming hits that day because they said this is how you sell software now. And yeah, give it away. If you're not giving away a version of your product right now, then I don't know how you're going to be able to scale without a very high-touch sales team.
It's kind of deceptive though, because this is what every startup pricing page looks like. If you guys have your own startups, I'm sure you have a plan page like this where you list out the columns and you have the different differentiators between the individual plans, but really in the security space, and especially in the two-factor space, this is unheard of. It's unheard of to be able to sign up on your own without, any credit card details, without any identifiable contact information, without getting calls from sales folks. And even after, we've been around for the past 2 years, still, this is, our product is one of the few two-factor products that you can actually try out on your own. So I think that's something that's I don't know, something we've taken from the typical startup model and applied to the enterprise security software marketplace.
Yeah. You talked a little bit, this perfectly on this page, a little bit about how you determine your pricing in terms of worrying about charging too much or too little.
Do we have any pricing dice?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, our biggest competitor is RSA, right? These guys are billion. They were bought back in 2006 for $2 billion, right, by EMC. These guys probably do about $2 billion a year top line revenue. We make fun of them with some of the shirts and stuff. I mean, the thing that happened with us also with RSA was the week that we launched the company in March of last year, they were breached, right? They were hacked by the Chinese, and we
don't know who was responsible.
We don't know who was responsible, but it's Chinese. and through them, Lockheed Martin, L3 Communications, like literally every major military defense contractor was attacked. But yeah, we showed up at the RSA conference last week in San Francisco. Like this is their conference, right? They spend there's 20,000 people in San Francisco. Handing out these shirts where it's a picture of their product with the word "fail" on it, right? We're not wallflowers. Anyway, we got this big blog post now we did yesterday where we asked, invited people to give us their best sort of display of breaking or destroying RSA's product in exchange for a T-shirt, and there's people put some on fire, people took access to them, took a golf club. I mean, it's pretty funny.
Illustrated pictures of a bulldozer pushing RSA tokens into fire.
Right. But these guys being the 800-pound gorilla, right, in the market, around for 20 years, right, where since the 80s they've had patents that only recently expired here. They've had pricing power, right? And what we decided to do when we went out was ride their price curve, right? The price book's public, well not public, but you can get it, right? If you're halfway resourceful, you can get any of your competitors' price books. And we decided to kind of price against that, right? Where we have basically a solution that's literally 4 times, 5 times more featureful, literally in terms of the number of features, the number of factors we support, but like a bajillion times more usable, right, and like, you know, pleasurable to use and easy, right? But we priced close to it, right, but under. A healthy enough margin underneath it so that people get over the hurdle of trying to buy a company, a startup company's, a no-name vendor's product, right? But we'll see, you know, because it never makes sense from a pricing point of view to be the best product in the market with the best price, right? That never makes sense, right? So at some point, things will change for us probably. But while we're small, while we're getting off the ground and really building a lot of early traction, you know, we have to be somewhat aggressive in terms of that. The nice thing though is that our cost structure is completely different from RSA's, where these guys have to build little doohickeys or get them made, manufactured from Chinese ODMs and shipped. Ours is just software. I mean, we don't, you know, it's software as a service. In fact, you know, we don't, you know, we give away the mobile apps. You can download them for free. So our margins are pretty awesome, right? Like we have a lot of, you know, our cost structure admits a lot of sharing, right? Potential partners or what have you. And so it just depends. You know, what I'd say is generally speaking, you would, you know, to the extent possible, you go after value pricing, right? That's always the model, right? Whatever value produced for the customer, it should be something fair that they understand and can basically play, you know, price against. But if it's a competitive situation, then you have a number. You know where the market is. You know literally what market is, right? So you just have to navigate against that and do enough sort of win-loss analysis with deals to figure out if price was the issue or not. But yeah, pricing is always tough, particularly for new products where you don't have too many competitors in sort of an open space. And we find ourselves in that situation with some of the other things that we're doing that are more B2B2C, where no one has deployed 2-factor at a scale that we're looking at, right? With like, you know, potentially like millions and millions of users. And, you know, there's just no numbers for that kind of thing that we're just going to start to make them up.
Any questions? I'm going to just wrap it up. The one thing that I normally ask, you know, is basically, what's your recommendation? What's your suggestion for a lot of us who are trying to, you know, be the next thing that we're doing? I mean, what would you suggest? I mean, keep, you know, recommendation or suggestion.
Oh, I don't know. That's hard. I mean, that's not a fair question.
Well, actually in Michigan. Actually, also in Michigan.
In Michigan.
Yeah, you know, staying here, making it happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I can't say, right? 'Cause the weird thing about Michigan is that, at least in Southeast Michigan, is that we have this weird line at 275. It's almost a hard line, right? Where, you know, people don't cross that line very easily. I mean, literally. I don't know why. I mean, you guys did, obviously, but you know, for the most part, you know, Ann Arbor is a weird little bubble, right? And then there's all of the rest of Metro Detroit. You know, I think, you know, I'd love to figure out a bit more how to kind of bridge those gaps, you know, because we have pockets of really great talent, you know, in different parts of the state. Like, you know, West Michigan has an amazing design community, largely stems from Herman Miller and Steelcase and all this kind of stuff, and all those folks that have kind of migrated over toward digital design. You know, there's entire groups like AIM West and so forth that they've got some amazing designers out there. Great design talent, not a lot of programming, not a lot of sort of deep systems and kind of folks kind of doing that stuff. Southeast Michigan here, we've got, well, Ann Arbor has got lots and lots of, a deep bench of software folks, right? Lots of software folks. Then toward Detroit, you know, where a lot of the agencies are, where a lot of the autos and, you know, there's the tier 1, tier 2 suppliers are. There's a lot of manufacturing. There's a lot more business-minded folks, so traditional enterprise folks. And there's a lot of marketing, right? A lot of marketing that, you know, that all these things are elements of a company that if you put together, you know, would make for something really great, but, you know, for historical reasons, we seem to be a little bit separated by. You know, I've tried to go and you know, we make efforts here to kind of go and bridge the communities between what we do out of DNewTech, which, you know, I'm sure you guys are seeing that stuff, but, you know, DNewTech is, you know, the sister organization to this event that we do here out of the Tech Brewery. I'm not the Tech Brewery, the B School, but we have about 2,000 members. The events are fairly large. I don't know how we're going to last once here, but you know, it's a third Tuesday of every month. Typically at the B School. Yeah, we had 200 members at the last one. But it's It's a good event, but a little bit insular in terms of it being mostly, it's all Ann Arbor folks for the most part. I mean, we get some cross-pollination, some other folks presenting, but, so I also don't know what people's situation is like elsewhere, but I think that the most important thing is to find critical mass. And that's the whole point the brewery exists. If it weren't for the brewery, we wouldn't have had the experience of a lot of companies here finding funding, leveraging the partnerships and relationships, right, that come through almost organically, right, where even like, buddy Jason at Benzinga, he got funded through Lightbank after a referral from here, where those guys came and visited the tech brewery, like, hey, you want to find companies with a social graph? They're like, hey, go talk to Jason. These guys are doing great. And without, again, that kind of critical mass of connectivity, it's hard. It's inordinately hard to kind of start a company or take it to the next level. And so, to the extent possible, my recommendation would be to find critical mass somehow. And I know more of that kind of stuff centering around some of the activities downtown Detroit, whether it's Bisdom or Madison Building or some of that kind of stuff. That's why I'm really happy to be in Ann Arbor, because there's a lot of there's a deep bench of talent to build companies from, and I do believe the most important part of that at the early stages is engineering, is the ability to actually build something, because you got to build something before you sell it. Well, not always. We sold something before we built it, but you have to be able to build something of value in order to sell. And so finding those kind of pools of talent is really important. A quick question: how many folks here actually have companies that they're doing right now or started? I know you, Kyle.
Just put my hand up,
And how many are thinking about it or haven't yet? Okay, so for those of you thinking about it, and what's the where's sort of your head in terms of hesitation, and like what's I know why I like to start companies. I suck as an employee, right? Basically, I'm not a good employee. I'm actually a very, very bad employee. But the rest of you, there's a motivation. There's probably a reason you guys are going out and looking to start something new. If you haven't yet, what are some of your thoughts about why you're not yet? What things are holding you back from it?
Finding the right team member, finding people.
Yeah.
That's the biggest hurdle right off the bat.
Yeah.
Unless you come to the project with a team, you have to find other people to work with.
Yeah. That's the most common question I get from folks seeking advice is how do I find a technical co-founder? That's like the question I get over and over again. And I don't have a good answer to that. I typically end up deferring that and just hunting to to a blog post, which is kind of it's something you can do, but honestly I don't know how else to do it.
The Alma is that friendly towards the non-technical founder, so if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's not too friendly towards the non-technical founder. It's just kind of
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't you hold a meeting and that's the subject matter? Instead of having a presenter of an entrepreneur, have a meeting that sits there and invites people who are looking for partners.
There's a bunch of that. There's a bunch of those mingle and match kind of events and so forth. But Donna, I think those don't work nearly as well as it's the funny things that sort of bring people together, right? Like we had two of my guys that came out of Zatu. Well, they went on spun. We've had a bunch of sort of spin-off companies here, right, from other companies. One of them, the most recent one, Marshall Weir, I sent from Zatu to Mobiata. After Mobiata sold to Expedia last year, he's now doing a new company from guys that he met singing a cappella madrigal choir, right? Like that's it. Like dude's just into like singing, right? And so his two co-founders, they just happen to like sing, and that's what they like to do. But it turns out that they're like really great as co-founders. This is their company, right? And they spun this thing up in 3 months. They have 15,000 users. They've got they've got good traction, and I think a lot of it's just that they really like each other and they trust each other. Right? They can sing in harmony, right? but that stuff is surprisingly important, right? That's like really important you know, to find folks who have your back. Because it is a lot like a marriage. Like, you know, you hear about sort of really bitter and troubling kind of, you know, founder splits and stuff, and that stuff happens when, you know, that isn't that same consideration given to the personal interaction. And so I'd say it's, you know, the serendipity of meeting the right kind of people in the right kind of places, hearing about the right kind of thing is more important than maybe sort of pitching each other and kind of like, you know, are you the right match for exactly what this idea is? Because, you know, what I've always found is it's always the team. The team is the most important thing. The ideas are going to change, you know, typically. You know, in our case, it didn't really, although it might. Still, it might change. But the team is by far the most important thing to consider in building a company, especially at the earliest stages. You know, later, you know, when it's more of a mechanical process of scaling, it's you know, it's a little bit different. But you know, when you're 5 people, every one of those people has to be remarkable and outstanding, and you know, just to have good chemistry and have fun together. Because otherwise, the work is too hard. You know, I think more of the events that are things like DNewTech or you know, half the events that are on the EQE's calendar, right, that are just like meetups, you know, hackathons or other things, help a lot. Also, if you know, if you have a day job, if you're working somewhere else, you know, those are also good places to meet people who have a shared history and background experience, alumni networks. I mean, just about anything. It's something that kind of draws affinity between people and gives you sort of shared basis, common understanding, right? You know, good places to find folks that could potentially start something with. But yeah, building a team is really hard, and that is like, you know, and as a founding CEO, that is the job, right? The job is to build a team. I mean, there's a lot of other kind of stuff besides, but that's the job fundamentally. Build the right team, everything else follows.
Can I ask the question then of how much time you spend in like CEO non-code related things versus actually being
productive, right? You can say it's cool. No, really, I've been, it's bothered me actually quite a bit to an extent I didn't really think about previously how little code I've done, right, in the history of the company. Although John was probably happy about that. He's always having to clean up after my crappy code, but no, I mean at this point, right? It's you know, a lot of my time in particular, spent trying to think about the you know, when you're in the early stages of the company, you're thinking about building the product. You know, now it's about building the business, right? Building the organization, right? That supports the business. And it's a different problem, right? So I'd say early on, you're sort of debugging, you know, systems of code. These days, we're really debugging systems of people. And so it's slightly a different job, right? But you know, that's how it goes in a startup, right? You always end up doing something different every 6 months.
Well, hey, I think we're going to. You guys can stick around. We're going to have. We still have. I think we still have pizza. Yeah, we got to get rid of that guy.
We definitely have beer, so.
And we get some beer too.
Yeah.
But hey, let's give up for John and security. I gained a lot from it. So this is actually the part of time where we actually let everyone know what's going on in the next couple of weeks or even months. Because I know there's a lot of activity now in Arbor, also in Detroit. So I know the next thing I want to mention is, hey, you have the poster?
Yeah, I do.
Because I need to promote this, because this is one of the things that's going on. Again, trying to cross path, trying to build a community. This is an event called DNewTech. This is the second time this year. We're actually, one of the reasons why we're doing this is trying to get people involved. It's going to be based in Livonia and Schoolcraft, but Schoolcraft is a big, I guess, sponsor of this event. But what basically it means is that we want to be able to share what's going on across cities, southeast area of Michigan. So this is a huge event coming out. We got Andrew Humphrey, who is the meteorologist. I can't pronounce that, for WDIV. So I mean, this is an event that we're trying to get people pulled together. So this is on April 12th. Look out for this. We saved the date, but more to come. Check out the website. The next thing, and the other things, the DNewTech coming up in April. We have Jason Resnick from from Virginia. Doug, you just mentioned them. He's coming out. He's going to be presenting. So it's going to be out in Tech Town. So anyone who's going to be out in that area, come out, join us. Food, drinks, bazaar, and us. Anything else, Maria?
Yeah. Before Doug, I really want to say thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom. Great. And encourage everybody too. You think about the things going on in the Valley, right? And there's no difference. We've got these brilliant, bright people here in Michigan, and we can do this. We're already building our startup community, and we're just going to continue to do so. I just want to encourage you guys. If you have a vision, keep putting energy towards it. Keep trying to build your teams. One thing with Wisdom going on soon, we've opened up the application period for our next accelerator, which begins April 23rd. The application deadline is March 23rd. We're based out of the Madison, which is the technology hub of Detroit. Very fun, cool space, great community, huge support system to help pull you guys along and help to give you good expertise and connect you up. So if anybody's interested, make sure you apply before March 23rd. Okay?
Also, when we start up in Arbor, I heard. Is that
Start Weekend in Arbor?
Start Weekend?
It happened already. It happened just ahead of Start Weekend Detroit, which I know you guys just had also.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that.
Can I also put in a plug for a friend of mine, Mosier, out at the Collaborative in Birmingham. He is trying to bring in 30 people. He's already got jobs lined up. You get a stipends. You have to live in Detroit. He'll put you up in Detroit, bringing in 30 people from out of state. Please, if you know somebody from out of state, one of your friends, tell them about this. Get them out here to us. Okay? It's basically trying to get 30 new entrepreneurs into the city of Detroit for a period of about a year. You're totally covered. You've got a salary, everything.
What's
This
the
man is really stepping up.
Doyle
Doyle Mosier and the Collaborative.
Yeah.
Look it up.
It's out in Birmingham. They actually were sponsored from sponsored DNewTech last year.
Yep.
Basically, I'm actually trying to search right now, but the actual name of the event is Challenge Detroit. There we go.
Challenge Detroit.
So basically, they're trying to bring people into young people coming into Detroit or Southeast Michigan. So
I'm certain if you're already starting and you want to bring in a patriot into Michigan to help you start your business, that'd be a perfect candidate.
Yeah.
And he gets and you get him. You get Doyle's organization paying the rent and giving a salary. There are some requirements for getting that, though. You have to do some community work.
It's great, actually.
It's
You
great
have a salary. You're working with one of these great companies in Detroit. Plus, you're also dedicating some of your time to moving the community projects forward, right?
And bringing in a whole bunch of new people and companies, hopefully, will join. And I really want to see Doyle succeed in this because he's put in a heck of a lot of work in trying to get this done.
Yep. Doyle and Deepa.
Yeah.
anything else? Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask this group, I've been told this is probably the wrong group, I'm going to ask anyway. I have an app, business we're getting started, there are a couple apps security related, and I'm looking for some developers, affordable developers. I got some quotes from some app houses here, and they're out of range. So again, I got to keep the business model intact. If you know anybody, a friend, a dog, anybody who can do coding, get back. My name is Terry Brooks, my company's a Student Advance LLC.
Cool.
Go on some of the, help me out, Marie, some of the new I Need Employee sites that the state has started.
Sure. You're talking
I
about...
can't remember their names. I know you remember.
You're talking about the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and
Yeah.
also Hired My Way, which Doyle Mosier is part of.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. And then there's angel.co.
Yeah.
There are a number of them where you can put in that, and it's going out to this fairly large community that's constantly growing. I'll try and address your needs.
I'll look at Spark, I'll look at a few sites, if you get more.
No, these are sort of separate from the incubators right now, but there are a whole bunch out there that are trying to address this issue. Actually, TechTown just launched theirs, I think, yesterday.
Right.
So go to the TechTown site.
WSU.org.
I've been to Tech Town Saturday, I will.
Anything going on at Grow Detroit, Alex? What's going on?
We have an event next month, I believe, here, right, Doug?
I think so.
So we're still putting that together. We'll send out an announcement when it is officially lined up. So that's all I have for now, aside from saying thanks. Appreciate everything tonight, guys.
And then the last one that I know of is GLEQ competition is they're taking entries now for the spring GLEQ competition. I believe it closes at the end of this month.
If you guys aren't plugged into Diane, what's Diane's last name?
Diane Durant.
I mean, she basically sends out a monthly newsletter with all the events that's going on regarding startup entrepreneurship and all that. DNewTech I know is in there, DNewTech is in there. What he was mentioning, it's also in there. So if you guys ever want to, it's actually up there on the DNewTech website.
The video, if you didn't attend ACE 12 Annual Collaboration for Entrepreneurship last month, end of January, the videos are up. You can watch the breakout sessions and the main sessions on the ACE site.
That wraps it up, guys. Hey, thanks for coming out.
Were you still want to take people downstairs?
Yeah.
All right, so check it out real quick. I'm with Pillar, so we're going to be leasing some space for Doug downstairs. You guys want to check it out and see what our thoughts are for it?
Look it up.
Microsoft authentication.